Okay, welcome back to Alibi Radio. I'm so excited to be here. Today, we are going to have a great episode. And the fun fact about this episode is actually we were going through all of the applications for people that wanted to be on the podcast this season. And very few people got like a yes, 5-star, let's roll, let's get this person on. But the guest today did. So I'm really excited. You definitely have an amazing story to share with us. So we're going to dive in right away so we can spend some time talking today. So here at Alibi, we know that we all come from different backgrounds that lead us to where we are today, and each of us carry our own pivot story to learn how to shake up the traditional view of entrepreneurship. And we're excited to have on our podcast today, Hani Anis, founder of Anis Collections, a luxury South Asian bridal boutique, and founder of the incredible marketing company, Kahani Digital, which in Hindi, Kahani means story. And so without further ado, I want to hear your story today. So I would love for you to share a little bit about your story and how you got started.
Yeah, thank you so much for that intro. Oh my gosh, I did not know it was 5 stars across the board. It's so sweet.
Yes, no, you have a great bio and a great story, and I'm a sucker for stories, and apparently my whole team is, because we were like, we have to have her on.
I'm going to shout, and I will probably talk about this later, but I do hire people that play to my weaknesses, so I will shout out my publicist, Amber, for that one. Thank you so much, Amber.
I know. Isn't it great when you have a good publicist and someone that can write the copy for you?
Yeah, all I do is give her bullet points, and I'm okay with admitting that.
Hey, that's good.
But yeah, I started my first company in 2017 while I was still in college. So at the young age of 21 is when I started Anis Collections, and I never really did it full time. I was in the finance world. I did investment banking. I was in corporate VC doing marketing. And really when the pandemic hit, right before, so the 2019, I had left investment banking. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take 6 months off. I'm just going to work on Anis Collections for a little bit and just kind of like figure it out, because it had been like 2 years at that point. We had made some changes. So just figure it out, get it together. And then in my head, I was like, either in 2020, I'm going to apply to business school and I'm going to go get my next corporate gig, whatever that may be, something in finance, I guess. Fast forward to 2020, and literally March 15th is when I got the VC like corporate job for a role that they had created for me, which was marketing and like managing deal flow at the same time, because having my own business, I had learned how to do the marketing side. And so they really liked that creative background because it's rare in the finance world. So they literally created a role for me, which was really cool. And then I was lucky to have that, because then the wedding industry completely shut down like 2 days later. So I had this job, and I got approached during COVID by all of my freelancer or like business owner friends in different spaces of the South Asian world, saying like, hey, you have experience in marketing. You're doing this with corporate. Can you help us? Because, with COVID, digital marketing really blew up. So I was just like, yeah, sure, I'll do it freelance, because I had more time on my hands, I guess, without any selection. So I did freelance for a while, and then we get to like September, October of that year, 2020, and the world starts slowly opening back up. Weddings start slowly coming back. My production team slowly starts working again. And now I'm like, oh, I have a corporate job, I have a company, and I have freelance projects. And this isn't looking good for me. And I don't have that much time on my hands anymore. So during the holidays that year, I sat down with my parents, and my parents have been very supportive throughout my first company too. And I was just like, listen, like I'm struggling mentally, and like, I just don't have time for all of this. What do I do? And my dad was pretty straightforward about it. He was like, what do your finances look like? And I was like, I literally am making the same amount of money freelancing that I'm making at my corporate job. So like, I feel pretty comfortable leaving it when you talk about logistics. And he was like, what do you like doing more? And I was like, the freelance, small business route. And so my answer was pretty clear. I went in after New Year's and resigned. And I did give them a month because I was planning a very large marketing conference. But during that month, I like really figured out, I told all my clients that I went full time. And during that month, they told their friends. And so by the time I actually left my job, I had a whole influx of work coming in that I didn't anticipate. So great problem to have. But my first company, I always say I really did it like strategically, in the sense of I filed the company, I did the branding, I did all of that. Then I went to launch. With Kahani, I quit my job and had all this work coming in, and I didn't even have a name at that point. There was no name, there was no branding, there was no employees, it was just me. And I was just like, oh no, this is not what I planned for. So I really had to like get all of that together and hire my first full-time employee, like literally a month after I quit my job. We didn't have a name or the branding done until probably last July. Our website didn't go live till this January, which goes to show that like starting a business can be really untraditional. You can go roundabout if you want to. It like kind of just happened and it was great. I was able to get a lot of traction by word of mouth really quickly. And then from there, we really focused on the South Asian owned and founded niche because to my knowledge, we are the only agency that specializes in South Asian owned and founded businesses in the US. And there's a ton of businesses out there that like are in that niche that nobody's catered to before. So that's kind of in a nutshell how we got here.
Yeah. Oh, I love your story. I think that entrepreneurship just evolves. Like everything that you started even back in college just was like a stepstone to kind of bring you to where you're at. But I think what's really cool about your story is that niche continued throughout, that it just like it always stayed, which obviously it's a huge part of your life and your journey as a person. But I think that's one of the cool things, similar in my story too. Every business I've created when I left my corporate job as well was everything has been about helping with flexible work in some capacity. And so I think that it's a lot of that happens for entrepreneurs. It might look completely different. Maybe it's, a fashion business and then it completely pivots into, freelancing. But I think the best freelancing and agencies that get created are ones that just the work was coming at you. It was just continuing to come at you. I know when I freelanced too, that's how it was. I was like, I barely had to market myself because I niched down specifically enough. And I think that's the key is that you just, that people are coming to you because you become the one known for it. Which it's very rare to have that, but it's so special and it can create a whole company and more jobs for other people. So I'd love to know a little bit about, and you talked to it briefly about, okay, I have all this work coming in and I needed to hire other people. So how have you started to handle that scaling of this now digital media company?
Last year, as I mentioned, it was a little crazy because starting an agency and being in marketing was like not what I had planned on starting. So like with the fashion company, again, it was very strategic and I kind of like had a business plan, but with this, I didn't even have that. So it was kind of like I made a promise to myself, like I'll say yes to opportunity and then enough yeses like will lead to momentum in that sense. And that's really how it kind of happened. But with hiring, it's like, you are investing in it in a way. It is when you're starting out hiring, even though it takes a load off your plate, initially what people don't realize is hiring someone full-time adds a huge load to your plate initially until they start to take that load off. And so it's really important to hire good people, which can be really daunting when you've never hired someone full-time ever. And also the demographic you're looking at is probably the same age as you, if not sometimes a little bit older and sometimes a little bit younger. So for me, I think unintentionally references really played in well. It was a coincidence the way that my first hire worked, where I think 2 weeks before I made the decision to bring someone on full time, one of my best friends had texted me saying, hey, I know you just started this marketing thing and like you've been in marketing for a while. my cousin is graduating in May from Michigan, and she really needs, like, she's looking for a full-time job in marketing. She's willing to even do part-time, but like, are you hiring, or do you know anyone who is? And I responded to that. I remember this was like early March, and I was like, I don't know if I have the bandwidth to, but I'll keep my eye out. And then literally 2 weeks later, I was like, did she find something? Because I think I am. So really, like, it was my friend texting me, and that's what put the word in for my first full-time hire. And she stayed on with us till the following, from May to May. So last May to this May is, she was here for a year, which was great. And then as I moved forward, I think my next hires were in July and August, and August was interns. July was, I think, more contract people at that point. With those two, I posted in my networking groups and got referenced people and then interviewed them. What I really looked for when it was hiring was, I find that like technical skills, when it comes to marketing, you can train people in those. They're not really like, it's not as intense as engineering or coding or things like that. And marketing is always growing and evolving. So if someone knows a different skill than you do, it's almost great because they bring a different perspective. So it wasn't really like technical skills, besides my graphic designer who really needed to know certain programs. Besides her, like, nobody else really came in with specific things that I was looking for, but mainly I wanted to know if they were a good fit to the team and a good fit for the clients. Because in our business, it is really about relationship building. And if you're not good at that, then it really hurts you. So that was like, I think, my main criteria when it came to interviewing people and getting people on board.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense. I think that culture fit, because people are coming to you because they're interested in your business because of your niche, as well as how you've run business before and what referrals have brought people. So you need to make sure that those people are going to show up with that same credibility, authority, but then also just the same relationship skills and mindset that you have. I think that's really important, and something that a lot of people miss during initial hiring processes. I know that I've turned people down from hiring them because they weren't a culture fit. Maybe they were like the best, like everything else fit, but like I wasn't going to jive with them, and either was the rest of my team. And sometimes I've brought people on that, I thought were going to be a good fit, but maybe I didn't push enough in that part of the interview, and I wish I had. It's definitely can bring up some problems and hurdles that you might have to address. Which, speaking of that, how did you overcome any like major hurdles that you talked a little bit about? Obviously, the pandemic came and kind of completely changed your business initially. So that you could talk about that, even some more. But also, has there been another hurdle that you've really, hit up against that you've overcome so far?
So yes, the pandemic with Anis Collections, that was a complete game changer. That business still exists to this day, but we really, there was nothing we could do about it. We just kind of lost revenue and just had to hit pause, because my teams are overseas in India, and India had it worse than we did. Like, there were more people dying, more people getting sick. Like, it just was really bad. So I know a lot of companies who had manufacturing in India opened a lot earlier than we did, but we really made it a point to ask our team leads, is it safe? Are you comfortable? Is it good enough for people to come in, or is we can wait, it's okay. So with that business, we basically took a year off because and it was worth it. Long run, it was worth it. We didn't deal with people people were already dealing with so much hardship and loss. We didn't want to add to that at all. So that was nice. And luckily our brides were super understanding. And quite frankly, I didn't have anyone even having a wedding during that time. So people's orders that were paused were just don't worry about it. Our wedding's not happening until 2022 at this point.
Everybody had to push that one out. Yeah. Sure.
So that one was a little bit easier. I think with Kahani, the only major hurdles have really been once I did have employees, it's been more of an internal struggle of maintaining that, because in client facing businesses, you're always anxious and stressed about what if I lose a client? And then on top of that, then it's like, not really my pay. Like, of course my paycheck gets affected, but it's like, I don't want to lose one and then have my employees get affected. We've been really lucky where we haven't, our retention rate's been great. A lot of my clients I've had for years and years since I was freelancing. So we've been lucky in that sense, but it's not that I still like stop myself from thinking about that every day. Yeah. So I think that was a major hurdle, and it was work-life balance for me as a founder. I've had very clear boundaries for my employees. I've been through a lot of terrible like boss employee relationships in my past work life. So I know like exactly what not to do. And so I've been clear about like, these are your working hours. Do not work outside them. Like, unless like I specifically tell you, don't do it. And then just balancing their own lives and vacation time and all of that. But with me as a founder, I think when I first got started, it was kind of like, okay, I have two businesses. One's already taken a hit from COVID. I can never take a break. And that really did not work well for me. I think last year, a lot of the year, I was working 7 days a week. And it wasn't until like September when I think I had a team of like 10. At that point, my like friends and family would be like, you have a team of 10. Why are you working 7 days a week? And then at one point I like sat down and thought about it, and I was like, yeah, why am I doing this? This doesn't make any sense. And so slowly, it was a slow, gradual like let go, but it was like, you can let go as a founder. You do need a break. You're allowed a break that I really had to like transition my brain into. And it took like, okay, I'll start with taking Saturday off. Then it went to, okay, now I can take Sunday off. And then finally it was like, okay, like this summer we have summer Fridays too. Or like I went on a vacation and didn't check my computer for a weekend. And then this year, last month, I went on a 10-day national park trip and did not have cell service. So I couldn't check anything, and it was great. Everything got done. Everyone was on top of everything. So it was trusting my team and me just like letting go a little bit that I had to get over.
Yeah, no, it's, you're not alone. I definitely have experienced all of that too. And I'm pretty good about making sure Saturdays are completely off. Like, and that has definitely saved me. And I try not to do anything too much on Sunday, except for like, make sure I'm all set up for Monday. And I usually just take,
right? Yeah.
Yeah, just prepare for make sure we're good for that day. But I also took some time off this summer too. I think that, you know, pandemic hits, we're all running a million miles an hour for 2 years to make sure that we survive. And I think the summer was kind of that pause for a lot of founders, just like, hey, we need a moment, like we need a minute to take. And the ones that didn't, I mean, it was detrimental for people because it's too much when we're going a million miles an hour. And I think you brought up something about, you know, wanting to make sure that, you know, you keep the clients in, because we want to make sure we keep our team on. And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as founders to make sure that we can show up as much as we can. And I think one thing I've had to do this year, and I'm sure this has probably happened for you or will happen for you at some point running a business, is just going, okay, worst case scenario, if this is what happens, what do I feel like ethically okay with doing that I'll just have to make that decision? So if plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G happens, that I'm okay with that. And that's helped a lot for me, like stress level of like handling a company as, okay, well, if we get to that point, that's what we have to do. I'm okay with that. And we'll just cross that bridge. But kind of setting ourselves up for potentials of whatever, hoping that everything's good and that we're going in the right direction. But I know it's so hard to not work yourself all into the ground in many different ways, for sure.
Yeah. And I think it's also like about giving yourself a little bit of grace. I think we as founders feel very guilty about a lot of things all at once. And like at the end of the day, we're people too. We get sick, like we get sick days, we get vacation time. Like I started to transition myself as like, yes, I am the founder, but I also need to look at myself as an employee of this company. If And more so, like, as the CEO, if I'm not well and I can't like take care of the company, then like I'm not doing my job. And so if that means giving myself a day off or giving myself like a vacation, then that is what it requires for me to run this business. Like, yeah, not burning myself down to the ground.
Exactly. And I think that our employees want us to take that time and make sure that we do that. And they're ready to support. And I think it's just, giving away that control. I joke that I run a company about outsourcing and I'm the worst person to outsource things, but it's our nature as founders. But I do know that I can trust my team. And I think it's more, oftentimes, and we're a very client facing company too, it's more I just don't want to disappoint anybody. And so just making sure that we're balancing that, but also knowing, so neither does my team. And I have to remind myself of that too. Like they want it to be successful too. And I think that's the power of building a really great team, is that you're like, okay, they want the same thing as me. We're all in alignment. Let's, we can get to the finish line without me burning out. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I love that you have had this niche on South Asian brands, and that's really been your focus, and helped you obviously scale and grow for sure. But what's the impact and legacy that you want to leave on the world? I know that you're just starting, you're younger than me, but you are doing awesome things. You've already started multiple businesses, but where do you want to go with this, and what impact and legacy do you want to leave?
I think I just want to encourage other people to maybe take on entrepreneurship in a way where where they're doing what they love on a daily basis. I guess I know that sounds cliche, but and there's a few things that I feel like I approach a little bit differently when it comes to entrepreneurship. And so I don't mean that in the way of I'm over here glamorizing that angle, because truly it's not, it's maybe glamorous 5% of the time when that when I tell people that I work in marketing and PR, what they think too is all the big fancy events and the packages and all of that. And I'm like, that is 5% of the job, not even. And so I don't mean glamorizing the field of quitting your corporate job and going into your passion, but I mean just kind of letting people know that they can have fun with it and not feel this insane amount of pressure to make it this multi-million-dollar thing. I think with Anis Collections, the questions I always got was why am I boxing myself in terms of only taking a certain number of custom orders? Why am I not scaling as fast? Why am I not doing it that way of the traditional, when you start a business, the goal is to scale it to this huge thing. And I would always tell people, and I'm like, I don't want Anis Collections to get bigger than me, balancing it with other stuff. And they'd be like, that's a disservice to the company. And it's no, it's not. That's just as much as I would like to keep it to, so that my quality stays the same, so that ultimately at the end of the day, I still love doing it, because I know the second I put pressure on this to make this insane amount of money, my creative energy is going out the window. And that is what this job requires. When I sit in design, when I sit and sketch, I cannot be in writer's block. And the only way I can't do that is if I don't put this insane amount of pressure on it. So I just want people to kind of remember that it doesn't have to be this multi-million-dollar idea. It could just be your passion and that's it. But you should enjoy doing it at the end of the day, or at least 90% of the time. Not every day is a perfect day.
Right. Well, you are very smart. Keep that, remember that, and hold that very tight to you, because everybody will push you to try to scale and go faster and bigger, and it's not the best thing. I think that I look at a lot of small business owners, and how much they love what they do, and they love showing up every day for their customers, and they will never be making millions and millions of dollars, and they don't care to. And they're very smart for that. And I think that it's, we've raised money and we've gone in that direction as a company. And that was my intent for this company. And so I think when you're starting and you know that, but it's still trying to tell people, yes, and maybe we're not going to grow as fast in 1 year, but in 3 years, we're going to have more revenue than the people that now are not even in business anymore because we sustainably did it. But that's a pushback, especially, you come from the finance world too. Like, I mean, that's a pushback to tell somebody that you're not going to go at all cost and, mess up the quality, mess up the relationships, mess up all of those things by going in a massively fast direction. So everybody listen to what Hani just said, because that's really important, because a lot of people, I mean, everybody's pushing that, whether you're in like a more of the just like online business space and like solo entrepreneurship versus like, even, startups and all kinds of companies. That's the thing. Go fast, go hard, hustle, hustle, hustle. But that isn't what people ultimately want in the end. And I think that's starting to come out more and more. I know there was an article in Elle magazine, I think it was yesterday, that was talking a lot about like the ambition of women and how it's shifting and changing. We're still very ambitious. You're obviously very ambitious. You've started multiple companies and everything. But the ambition needs to feel like something we love in the end and not something that we hate. And I think that that's so important. So thank you for bringing that up.
Of course. Yeah. Sure. I just, looking back, I wish I slowed down a little bit, even with Kahani stuff. Like, I wish I not even slowed down, because it was really like it was really unintentional the way things kind of came about. But I wish I like looked at the moment and maybe savored the moment a little bit longer, instead of being like, okay, check, let's go on to the next. Like, I feel like, because now I'm at a point where I like am like, with having a team, right? You feel like you appreciate the small wins a little bit more, because they bring it up and they point it out. And now I have ingrained that in my head, where on a weekly basis too, we will celebrate the small wins. And I think that helps in the grand scheme of the journey. And when you're talking about it to just anyone, a friend, a family member, you can really pinpoint like, this is when this happened and it really changed my mindset. Those moments aren't those big like press moments or those big revenue moments, but they are really important. And I think people miss it in that, I guess, and again, coming from the finance world, that rat race of climbing the corporate ladder, it works the same way in entrepreneurship, where people are trying to grow and scale. They're just like going a million miles an hour, and you miss those moments. And those are the best ones, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. It's so true. They really are those really great moments that you get to remember. And I know that even with our team, like I can remember some of our big pivotal times, but a lot of times I wouldn't have paused to think about that. And I'm really glad that my team has brought it up. Well, I have two last questions for you today. One is, what is your favorite quote that inspires you?
I say this one a lot. I would say fake it till you make it has really been a pretty big part of my journey. I'm not saying in a way of like actually tricking people, but I think it's in the way of tricking my mindset of like struggling with imposter syndrome, with competition around me, just with feeling like maybe I'm not doing enough. And in terms of with clients, I always presented a very clear manner of confidence, whether I had it or not. I think building a business has actually helped my confidence in a big way. But when I started out, it was me just kind of like faking that in public. And internally just being like, oh my God, can I do this?
For sure. No, I totally feel you on that. It is just showing up with that confidence, which really is just faking your mind or tricking your mind to show up and go, well, I have nothing to lose, really. I need to just do this and make sure that it happens, and hopefully it will. But no, I love that. I feel the exact same way, and how we kind of have to just go at it first without almost going scared into the moment. But just showing up and doing it. I think that's a huge part of entrepreneurship if we're going to be successful, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, and then the last question, I ask this to all of our guests, but how are you going to create momentum in the rest of 2022? So this could be both personal or professional. We obviously have already talked about the fact we're not going to be crazy hustlers over here, but what do you, I'm sure you still have lots of awesome goals for the rest of the year.
Yeah. I think I want to wrap the rest of 2022 up by maybe just slowing down a little bit more, both personally and not professionally in the way of not taking on projects or anything like that. But I think giving me and my team just more time and just really focusing on the creative aspects of the internal business, whether that's like building up our blogs or our social media, or just taking more time for those creative projects, and maybe like, well, I guess less cold pitching and like trying to get more business in the door. Because at this point, it's Q4 and we've been very fortunate to have done that throughout the earlier half of the year. So we are at a place where we can like take a little bit of a step back, enjoy the holidays more, enjoy time with family, enjoy the first holiday season back from COVID, essentially. And work on those more creative and aspirational things instead of the hustle.
Yes, I love that. I love that. It sounds like it's going to be a great rest of the year for you. And I'm excited to see your business thrive and grow as it needs to throughout the rest of time. And also, I feel like I just am really excited about what you've been doing and what you've been growing. It's really awesome to see another entrepreneur that is your age and smart and has this like great insight into how to grow a business and how to do it in a really great way. So thank you so much. I'm really glad our team all thought it was 5 stars and that we could have you here. But thank you for being on the episode. And you can find out more about Hani and everything that she does in the show notes. We'll link to everything, as well as you definitely should go and follow her on social media and make sure that you connect with her if her story resonates with you. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening today. Thank you, Hani.
Thank you.